And so we do it this way. I talked about this morning, I talked about the fact that we're going to be joined by a man who knows the sector very well. In fact, he was actually a Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission. Then, after some time, he became the convener of the pension bondholders. For many of you, you know him as a convener of the pension bondholders because then he was fighting for their funds to be released to them. Currently, he's the chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission Board. Dr. Anane Antwi joins us here on the Super Morning Show. Dr. Anane Antwi, good morning and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning to you.
Great. Before we get into the conversation, before we get into how we got here, I just want you to listen to, some people who called us yesterday and the concerns they had before we get into the conversation. Please listen.
We invested money after I did my thorough investigation and due diligence. I was a victim of mishandled. And then when they collapsed mishandled, they told us we are not financially cautious. So we shouldn't just invest in any place, but invest in government regulation institutions. So before I'd say go investing in mishandled, it was my high risk. Now I came to investigate. I went to Securities and Exchange Commission to find out if First Bank is in good standing. They showed me the statistics. They said it's among the best institutions. I saw the financial records and I put in money. As at 20, before it closed down, we have about 50,000. Look at 50,000 at the time. What it can do, my brother, when the incident came, look, and just follow up to that, I lost my job. My wife is a peasant trader. So you can imagine how we left our life up to now. We are on a platform. People are complaining, collapsing whereabouts.
Good morning, Joy FM. Please, I've not slept for the night. God being so good, you started to talk about this problem with the banking. I was investing towards my medical bill. That was on the 4th of May, 2018. I invested 16,000 Ghana cedis. And out of the 16,000 Ghana cedis, I took 10,000 towards my medical bills. Now, the money was not even enough for my surgery, so I couldn't do the surgery. So I was left with a balance of about 6,000. When I went back for my money, they tossed me me to such an extent that I got frustrated, but I kept on because I didn't have money anywhere. Finally, they gave me 900 Ghana cedis. The balance of about 6,000 is still with them. They changed locations up and down, and I kept on tracking them, tracing them. Finally, I traced them to the Octagon, and they gave me 476 CDs, 0.29 pesos. Out of 6,000, I almost died that day.
Joy News and Joy FM. God bless you for such a wonderful opportunity given to some of us whose funds have been locked up since 2019, 2020. I personally, a young man then in my mid-30s, invested a huge sums of money. Since 2019, 2020, our funds has been locked up over 500,000 to 600,000 Ghana cedis. I have been to the office several times. I have petitioned them, all to no avail. For me to get my funds has been a very challenging one. And the reason they kept giving us is that they have an issue with the finance minister. That was then, Ken Oforiatta. And that is why our funds has been locked up. That is why they cannot pay us.
Good morning, Joy FM. Your topical issue this morning has wrapped my wound. I'm a victim to this financial cleanup in 2019, thereabout, when our money invested in now a thing of the past. Our over 50,000 Ghana cedi at the time. 50,000 Ghana cedi at the time could do a lot. But this challenge has led me to cause my children never to even go to school for 1 year, 1 term, because I also lost my job. My wife's financial standing is nowhere to drive home about. And day in, day out, we are on a platform and nothing can be said much about it.
Super Morning Show. Welcome back, and thank you very much for staying with us here on the Super Morning Show. So, yesterday some of you shared your thoughts with that, and many of you actually sent messages. We shared all of them. Now, Dr. Anane Antwi, let's start this way. So, we know that in 2017, we started what was supposed to help create a resilient, strong financial sector. It's been more than 8 years. But the reality is that people still have their funds locked up and today are unable to access them. Why do we have this challenge today?
Well, thank you. Let me say that the financial sector cleanup was deemed necessary. If we have a problem, we must solve it. But I have said, and I'll continue to say, that the manner the program was carried out, as far as I'm concerned, was not the right way. I say that because I was in consulting them, and when this crisis started, let me even first start from when I was at SEC. And the Banking Act, or the Specialized Deposit-Taking Institutions, Banks and Specialized Deposit-Taking Institutions Act was in a draft bill. They had a discussion somewhere outside Accra, and the issue of when companies are going into troubles, how to resolve them, came up. And there was a provision which was saying that when you have a problem, you'll be asked to bring in money. And if you don't, it was like they will ask people to come and bring money and take over the company. And people reported that to me, that they have raised this issue and they have asked whether the SEC was consulted on some of these things. And we had a letter from that side that we should comment on such a provision. And I personally did the commentary on that provision. And I suggested, and that was accepted, that look, we have rights of shareholders. You cannot take that rights from them. So when people need to bring money, don't just say you are not allowing them. Give them the opportunity to bring in more capital for the company to go back to where it must be. You give them some time, and if they are not able to bring it, because we have rights of shareholders, if they are not able to bring in the capital, the fresh capital, then make it a law that you have the right to go and ask people to bring in capital. And that was accepted in the act. And so when this thing came, my worry, why I have said was not right, was that I didn't see anywhere that the BOG has asked people to either bring in capital, fresh people, advertise that these people need money. So anybody who has money, bring in, because the owners are unable to bring that money. And I've said, when I was in consulting, I have been approached by some investors who wanted to invest in these banks. In fact, I went around to 5 of such banks. The only problem that these people also had was that they were unwilling to let the bank go. For example, you talk to somebody and say, oh, I can only give them 25%. I say, no, the guy who is coming to take over wants to take a majority share so that he can change the direction of the bank. They would not allow new people to come and take over. But if the regulator has used the law and compel them, the regulator himself even advertising that we need people to come and invest in these banks to be able to get that capital. So if you are interested, come. I think if we have done it that way, we wouldn't have used government resources to resolve these institutions. Because I can say, and I keep on saying that at that time, people were willing. Capital was available elsewhere that people wanted to bring into this economy to invest in these banks. We didn't do that. And we just went on to collapse these banks. That was the beginning of the problem, because the way we did it, as far as I'm concerned, was not the right way that we should have carried on this. And once you do that, this is the financial sector. You put in money, and then this money is not coming back immediately. There is all sort of, they are all working together. When this person is affected, it affects this person, it affects that person, it affects that person. You can't resolve all this. You can't resolve all this, the effect. So we started, and before we realized, it has affected this bank. It has affected this fund manager. It has affected this finance house. It has affected this. And the effect has become the problem that we are now confronted with, that we still have not been able to resolve completely the crisis in the market. New issues. The minister will say emerging crisis, emerging issues that are coming. Because you think the old one you have solved, you've sent people away, you have paid them, even that payment, because you haven't gotten the money back. Claiming money from a dissolved company is not as easy as that. It takes years, even tracing the assets, before you can come out with the capital that you have used to build these people or to pay investors so that you can get money going ground again. We didn't do it right. And now it has affected a whole lot.
Okay.
Some of these institutions are finance houses whose licenses has not been revoked and they are still working. And you recall that we started this program, or this forum for lock-up investors forum. We go to the Bank of Ghana, 2nd May 2023, that you must work on this, because the law says that even if you foresee that within the next 6 weeks the person is going to be insolvent, start the resolution process now. But you have waited. These people have been there for years. You are not doing anything, and that is why we started our advocacy and marched to the Bank of Ghana on 27th March 2024 and to the Minister of Finance too. And the Bank of Ghana says, I can't revoke these licenses, because if I revoke their licenses, investors will come here for their money, and I don't have the money. Unless the Minister of Finance has provided funds, I can't do that. And they are saying that because the earlier one, the Minister of Finance provided funds before they revoke. So now they also want you to provide funds before they revoke. And that has been a problem for the past 3 years. We are struggling. We have been at the ministry. We have picketed for all this year. We say we stopped picketing because of the election. After the election, we are still struggling to get the ministry to make provisions in the budget so that the Bank of Ghana can revoke these licenses and pay investors just as the other investors were paid 3 years ago. That is our challenge now.
Okay. Now, because you make the point that, the whole cleanup could have been done properly, and if they had been done well at the time, capital was available. When it comes to these people, I mean, the current situation where some of these institutions, if I could infer from what you say, have become insolvent, but because we don't have money to, pay their depositors, we're still keeping them. How about these people going the way you say the Bank of Ghana should have gone about it in the first instance?
No, you see, why you create a problem, it becomes too hard to resolve. If they had gone that way at that time, all these things wouldn't have come. Now people have seen that the thing is worse. The condition has become worse. So getting people to come in now is very, very difficult. Very, very difficult. And I keep on telling, I have told the Bank of Ghana some time ago that, look, the little I know about resolution, if you don't resolve the issues early, very quickly, you will lose the battle. Because you can't reclaim even 1% of the assets. If you delay, by the time you set in, they will have no value at all. Their negative value will be so serious that unless somebody wants to do, people can come, because after all, in finance, people buy what we call junk bonds that are not, no value. People will still go and buy, expecting that it will have value later on. So maybe you can get, but it is not as attractive as it were 2019 or 2018 when they were doing this. And I personally went around. People wanted to come and invest. I won't mention the names, but 5 banks people say, I want to take more than 50% of this bank. Now you ask, who will come and say you want to take more than 50% of these troubled financial institutions that are remaining now? What value is he going to take for putting in that money? Everything has been destroyed, completely destroyed. But at that time, they had value. Now, almost nothing is there for somebody to say he's coming. So the situation, the method that was going to be sound at that time, now you can't get a response. You can advertise the whole world for these people. Let people come and see whether somebody will say, I'll put in that money.
Let's look at, I need to mention some names. So let's look at an institution like, say, NDK. Now, they are still functioning today. They were not part of the institutions that were collapsed by the Bank of Ghana. But they have a challenge because, a lot of their depositors and investors would need their money. In such a situation, how must the situation be resolved?
Well, as I said, what they have to do, I keep on saying that you have done for my brother, do also for me, because I'm also a Ghanaian. We are all Ghanaian citizens. When you have done it previously, you didn't go through this thing that I was talking about. You decided to revoke, and you have revoked. And that revocation is affecting the others. Those of us who are also with the NDK, bond savings and loans, SIC, and all those companies that are in distress now, all that we are saying is that do the same thing that you did for the others also to us. Revoke their licenses, find money as you found to pay investors. Then we can say that there's fairness in the system. Everybody has been treated fairly. You can't resolve someone's company that the person has investment, ensure that the person gets his investment back, and then for other citizens, the same Ghanaians, you want to treat them differently. No, that would not be fair.
Okay.
So once we have done this, we must also do it for the other people who are also in that problem.
I know some of these institutions are currently complaining about, the interest that they even have to pay on these investments. Would you, advise, for instance, that as was done in the debt exchange, we go for debt restructuring and say, okay, if you have this amount of money, part of your interest, you lose part of your interest, and then get this amount, and then that would be a better way of resolving this problem?
Well, that's why I keep on saying, you see, when you delay, you compound the problem. These guys are still, you have no right to stop giving me interest. Because that's the contract I have with you. I put my money with you, fixed deposit, you roll it over. You can't say you are rolling it over, you can't pay, so you are not going to pay me interest. Interest must be accrued.
Yeah, but Dr. Antwi, the government of Ghana actually told us that, well, they couldn't pay our interest. They gave us a haircut.
No, I'm coming. Mm-hmm. Interest must be paid if we are going normally. Now we are saying that it's like they are operating normally because they are adding the interest. If the Bank of Ghana comes in and say, I'm doing A, B, C, D, that would force all interest to be stopped. Once your license has been revoked and a receiver has been appointed, no interest would accrue on this. But if you are still allowing them to be creating, the funds that you need to resolve this issue keep on compounding every year. Because if NDK, like, for example, had investors' funds of 1 million 2019, and he cannot operate, and he's still charging interest, maybe by this time they would have gone to about 2 billion. So if you want to come in now, you need 2 billion if you want to resolve it. But if you have done that 2020, maybe 1 billion. So that is the issue. Until some intervention is done, the people will still be asking for their interest, and that is their due because they have put money inside, and you have to give them interest. But if the intervening matter comes in, then all this interest calculation will stop. Then you know that this is what you are going to pay. For example, those that licenses were revoked in 2019, the amount that is due them, nobody is charging interest on it. Nobody is charging interest on it. But those that have their licenses not revoked and they are working, they are charging interest, and that is why it's sending the amount due high up every year. So the earlier the regulator acts and revoke the license, and also the earlier the ministry also provides money, which the regulator is expecting before it revokes the license, the better.
Hold on 1 minute for me. I'll get back to you, Dr. Anane Antwi, because we need to talk about also something that is under SEC, because many people have complained about the Amalgamated Fund that was supposed to help them get their money. Yeah. Today they are complaining that they don't have their money. And since you know that sector, you are chairman of SEC, I'll get back to you briefly on that one. Just hold on for me.
And if Doc can also give us a bit about the transparency in how the earlier process was done, because now we've seen how much the government says it had spent in helping to deal with the depositors' funds, about 19 billion.
Yeah.
But we've not seen even a report on the various institutions, the 420 institutions, the quality of their assets, their liabilities, and what's informed that almost 20 billion to be spent, and how still people don't have their money.
Sure.
Yeah.
In the conversation on how we can have the locked up funds from the financial sector cleanup released to these persons who need their funds for various projects. And Dr. Anane Antwi has joined us on the phone. He's been a convener for the pension bond holders. He's also spoken about the locked up funds. He's been Director General of SEC, now Chairman of SEC. Dr. Anane Antwi, so, you've spoken to us, you've talked about how the Bank of Ghana must step in now to make sure that the right things are done. But let me take you to an area that you know very well. Because following the financial sector cleanup, still that affected fund management companies, the SEC and the government set up the Amalgamated Mutual Fund, which was supposed to be a special purpose vehicle for the liquidation of assets and payment of investors. Dr. Anane Antwi, these investors are still complaining and asking, when are they going to receive their funds?
Well, let me clarify the issue. The Amalgamated Mutual Fund, they are not realizing assets. They are not receivers. It's the receivers who realize the assets, and then the proceeds will be sent to wherever government wants the proceeds to be placed. If it's amalgamated, they will say put it amalgamated so that they can pay investors. So the mutual fund is basically to be making payment to clients of these fund management companies when monies have been made available to them. So if no money has been made available to amalgamated fund, they will not be able to pay missing. So last year, for example, you realize that the government said it was going to pay 1.5 billion to these investors, and 700 million was paid, was disbursed, and there was 800 million which was supposed to be disbursed in 2 tranches before the end of 2024. That didn't happen. But the first 700 million was given to Amalgamated Fund to pay. So if you haven't received any client who hasn't received any money last year, that is I think there was getting to the end of last year, after June or so. I don't recall the exact time that the amount was paid. But the 700 million was disbursed to the fund. And when the fund has gotten the money, then they also will pay investors. So I believe most investors have gone to take part of their money from that 700 million. If you haven't gone for money last year, then please go to Amalgamated Fund and then ask for that, and you'll be giving that. But going forward, the whole of this year, government couldn't make any provision to the fund. So as I said, if the fund hasn't gotten any cash from government, then they cannot make any payment. So this year, no fresh cash has been made available to the fund, and therefore the fund cannot make any payment to investors. So we are all hoping, and we have the SEC is working on that with the ministry to ensure that we will get some provision. You recall that in the first budget of the current government, they stated, that was this year, they stated that they needed about 10.4 billion to clear all these legacy ones, the ones that we are talking about. They are all called legacy issues. And then emerging risk. The emerging risk is supposed to be the new ones that are also in distress. The NDKs, the bond savings and loans, the SIC financial service, those are emerging risk. So together, government said it needed about 10.4 billion. It was in the budget statement. But unfortunately, it didn't go through the appropriation bill. So it didn't become part of the appropriations to be done this year. So this year, nothing was made available to pay investors through that fund. We are hoping that this year some provisions will be made. And once a provision is made in this year's budget, then next year the investors can expect some payment. So let us all hope that the ministry would this year be able to make some provision so that next year people can get some payment.
But Dr. Anane Antwi, I've just been checking, and as part of this program, we've been checking about, the Amalgamated Mutual Fund. So it's been indicated there that, the Registrar General, Office of the Registrar of Companies now, which is the official liquidator of these firms, was supposed to ensure recovery of assets, and the proceeds from these assets would also go into the fund to help pay. Are we saying there's been no proceeds from the assets of these fund management companies?
Well, I don't have information on that, but the process is going on. I don't know how much they have been able to recover.
Because I look at their website and it tells me that so far, up to date, 881 million has been disbursed to some 7,400 investors.
Yes. And what I'm saying that most of these funds has come from government. I don't know if you want to do a resolution through receiver, nobody fund the resolution. It is only when the receiver has received money, then you are paid. But I think what government did was that I would pre-finance it to pay people even if the receiver has not received any sums of money. So if, for example, the receiver wants to pay but is waiting to receive 1 million and government steps in to pay that 1 million, then technically it means when the receiver receives that 1 million, he must refund it to the person who has funded the payment. That is the technical way, traditionally, because the receiver was supposed to wait and receive. Then somebody stepped in to say that I will pre-finance it, give this to them, so that when you receive, you give it back to me. That is how it is done. But I'm not too sure what government policy.
Yes, except that the general expectation would be that until the investors are paid, government which actually gave some money should also hold on for that is until all the investors are paid, isn't it?
Well, that's why I don't know exactly what the arrangement government had with when setting up the fund, whether government will pay everything and wait for the receiver to collect, or advance some money, and when the receiver gets the money, he pays it. But I know government also needs money. He pays it. But I'm saying I don't know the arrangement. But the possibility is that you can have an arrangement where you say you haven't received the money, so I will advance you this. When you receive the money, then you give it to me. That is also an arrangement that can be done. But as I'm saying, I don't know the arrangement that government has put in for these kind of payments that the fund is doing. Whether pay everything, I'll pay everything and wait for you to collect, or as you collect, use that also to advance or to make further payment together with what I've been providing. I'm saying I don't have that.
So just by way of clarification, you say it will be important for government to advance money as it did in the past. Until that is done, and since we don't have information about the proceeds from the assets, the fund cannot make payments?
Well, that's what the government has undertaken to do. And government promised to do 1.5 billion last year. We're told the whole amount is balance about 4 billion or so. Government said it was going to pay 1.5 billion. And government was able to disperse 700 million. The 800 million didn't come. And so I think government policy is always to give that money. I don't know whether if these monies have not been advanced by government, some asset has been received and the fund is paying from that assets. I don't know. That's why I say I don't have.
But I'm curious. I mean, I know you've just gone back to SEC this year as board chairman, but I'm just interested. What report has the official liquidator been submitting to SEC, for instance, concerning these fund management companies?
Well, I think the process, everything is on the amount that government is able to give to the fund. That is all that we know people are relying on.
But what about the assets? The assets of the companies?
The assets, I am not too sure. I don't have information about that. What has been realized from the asset that I can I don't have that information. To be frank with you, I don't have information.
Because we are asking about this because we know there were 4 main receivers, and then the BOG also has a resolutions office, which also engage the consultants to do a study of the markets and get all the data to inform the government as to what to do. And so after all these, there should be a document, there should be a report that tells the government, for example, if the finance minister wants to act, he should know that there is a value of these assets, these are the liabilities. So if I put some 5 billion in amalgamated can pay, and we can recover these assets within the next maybe 2-3 years back into the kitty. We don't have anything like that to enable us.
No, I'm not saying there will be nothing like that, but I'm saying, I went back to the SEC not quite long, and not everything you can handle at the same time. There are some issues that we are handling, how to get money from government to pay investors is the key thing. The others, I haven't had any engagement with people working on it as to what has been realized, what needs to be realized. That's what I'm saying. I don't have information on that.
Dr. Anane Antwi, thank you very, very much for joining us this morning. We're grateful to you.
Thank you too.